As we prepare to drive into 2021, all of us, individuals, businesses, corporate leaders, find ourselves perhaps at an inflection point. Just as news of a vaccine rollout was beginning to give hope that we would see perhaps the end of the pandemic, comes news of new strains, new mutations, and new doubts that emerge. For all of us, there is optimism that 2021 will be better, but lessons learned from the year gone by as well. So to speak to us today on his outlook for 2021, the auto sector, and India's recovery from the economic impact as well of the coronavirus pandemic, I'm pleased to welcome on the show Mr. Rajiv Bajaj, Managing Director of Bajaj Auto. Mr. Bajaj, thank you so much for speaking to us. Hope you're doing well. And let me begin, of course, with the fact that, the Bajaj Auto has said that it will invest 650 crore rupees in a new facility in Maharashtra near your Chakan plant. This comes at a time when a lot of players in your space are recalibrating their capex. They're wondering whether they want to invest more. Should we look at this as a sign of your optimism that things are definitely going to get better?
Well, Tamanna, I would say this is a sign that our strategy is working and we are sticking with it, because the test of a good strategy is that it holds you in good stead in difficult times. And as you know, our strategy quite simply has been to be a global motorcycle manufacturer. And even over the last 9 or 10 months of this disruption, I think we have done relatively better and continue to do relatively better because we are not dependent on any one market or any one segment. Now coming to Chakan, so we continue to believe that the kind of growth we have seen with KTM, for example, in the last 10 years will continue strongly into the future. When we first partnered KTM in 2007, KTM was making all of 65,000 motorcycles. I think now they are close to 300,000 motorcycles. And over 100,000 of those were designed, developed, and made at our Chakan plant, the first plant that we have at Chakan. So it is our conviction, that of KTM and ourselves, that this kind of growth will continue with the brands KTM and now Husqvarna into the future. I feel confident KTM will double volumes from here in the future. And as you are also perhaps aware, we now have a new partner in Triumph, and we want to commercialize those products that we are developing together sometime in 22-23. And therefore, the main focus of the new plant will be KTM, Husqvarna, and Triumph motorcycles, for which the world is our market, and so therefore we are making this investment.
Mr. Bajaj, can you share anything more about this collaboration with Triumph? Like you mentioned, we will see a rollout in 2022-23. What is the strategy there? What kind of vehicles will we see?
Well, I think it's no secret that many manufacturers, including BMW, Triumph, Harley-Davidson, have been very inspired by the success of the Bajaj KTM relationship. I know because they've all said so, said as much to me. And I think the simple way to describe the Triumph relationship would be that in its content and its intent, it is very similar to our partnership with KTM. In other words, we will develop new products together. So most of the development will be done here at our headquarters, at our R&D and engineering facilities in Pune. These products will be manufactured by us, and essentially 98-99% of the content is usually domestic. It is so with KTM, and I expect that to be the case with Triumph as well. And then in terms of marketing and sales, Bajaj will have responsibility not just for the Indian market, but for some of the export markets as well, including our neighbors in the subcontinent and some markets in Asia, in Africa, etc. And this is what we do for KTM as well, because at the end of the day, we want to be part of the whole relationship. We don't want to just make to somebody's print and then ship it to them. So, we are not in that business. So it will be a very wholesome relationship. So right now, we have several products under development, Triumph products under development. As we shared before, these will be in the mid space, just like the KTM motorcycles that we make, and those Husqvarna as well. And sometime in 22 is when we had hoped originally to start up, but obviously there have been several months of delay because of the COVID situation. So whether we will still manage 22 or it will be more like 23, we will know. We will know in a bit.
Tell me, how does the new wave or the third wave or the mutation, whatever you may call it, in UK and Europe impact you in terms of exports for KTM, for maybe parts? Is there any disruption, say, to your plan?
Well, when this problem started, there was a clear shift to personal mobility in those parts of the world, especially in the developed markets. You see, I have never subscribed to the view that this is likely to be a significant phenomena in India, for example, because I think in India, whoever needs a two-wheeler and can afford it already has one, whereas in the developed markets of the US, Europe, Australia, etc., most people, as we know, use cars or public transport. These are very, very small two-wheeler markets. So over there, if a section of people suddenly feel that it is safer to have their own two-wheeler, well, they can certainly afford to do so. And use that instead of public transport. So that is why KTM has actually witnessed very, very strong growth this year. And despite the disruption in March, April, May, where all of us had different shades of lockdown, KTM expects to finish this financial year, I believe, on par with last year. So I have heard of growth rates, year-on-year growth rates in their markets being anywhere between 30 to 100%. Now, admittedly, in volume terms, that's not huge. But as you can imagine, these are very, very profitable motorcycles. And this kind of growth is not for the big motorcycles, because the people who are shifting from public transport to a KTM motorcycle are shifting for the smaller ones, the kind of motorcycles we make, which is in the 125cc to 400cc range, displacement range. So we've actually witnessed a very strong growth in our KTM exports. And therefore, from a demand point of view, actually, this has been a good thing. For sure, the supply chain was terribly disrupted, both at KTM's end and certainly over here because of the kind of lockdown that we effected here. And that problem has not completely gone away. We are still struggling. For example, we know that there have been recently issues with supply of components, especially out of China. There continue to be shortage of semiconductors, ECUs. There are issues with the availability of containers for exports. So the supply chain is still to stabilize. As far as this second, third wave is concerned, frankly, I don't know what it means. To me, a virus is a virus. If you suppress it through some means, it may look like it is dropping, the cases are dropping, the infection is dropping. The minute you release people and allow them to carry on with life as usual, it will come back. So, I mean, this is just jargon, but fundamentally there is a flu out there, and it's going to be there for some time. But what can we do? We have to cope with it the best we can.
I'll come back to you on the issue of the flu vaccine and mutations a little ahead, but I want to focus a bit more on the business and the sector. Before I go to the year gone by, I just want to get your take on the production-linked incentive schemes which have been rolled out as an outlook for 2021. They're expected to benefit, among others, the auto sector. It's expected to have a focus on exports. How do you look at this from the perspective of Bajaj Auto, and is there any clarity that you have on what these incentives are going to be and how they will benefit you?
Well, let me start by saying that Bajaj Auto was a big beneficiary of the MEIS export incentive because we export about half of what we make. So a 2% incentive on exports to us was a 1% effectively across the entire production of the company. Now, this, as you are perhaps aware, was suddenly and without any notice or explanation withdrawn from this financial year. So that's a big hit to a company like Bajaj. I think somewhere between 250-300 crores a year is the impact on our business. We were told that this incentive would not be available for this year. So we had to reverse that out of our first quarter results. Of late, one has heard that the government may actually be able to pay this incentive. But when you say what is the clarity, well, we have no clarity whether they actually will. And even if they will, when will that happen? We have absolutely no clarity. We've been asking this, but nothing has been told to us. As far as this PLI stroke ROTTEP scheme is concerned, or schemes are concerned, again, we understand the intent that it will reward particularly those who are exporting. Although it's a production-linked incentive, but then it's basis the distance traveled by the goods. So again, as a exporter, we are very enthusiastic about this development. But again, since there are no details available, at least to the best of my knowledge, it is very hard for me, or rather impossible for me, to say what exactly the scheme is about. What will be the impact on Bajaj, etc. So till we have some details, it's hard to say.
Have you given your inputs? What would you like to see? What would you like to see? I mean, there's been a lot of fanfare around the PLI. So have you been asked for your inputs? Have you given any inputs of what you would like to see as incentives? What would really help?
Certainly not just Bajaj, but as SIAM, we have given our inputs. I am not aware of the details, but essentially, at the very least, I would say we should find restoration of the MEIS level of incentive. I think that should be the floor. Anything more that the government can do is always welcome. For example, I have heard several times that the objective of the government is to create global champions out of India. And for this purpose, they wish to focus these benefits on certain sectors and certain companies who they believe stand a good chance of becoming global giants or global champions. Now, I cannot but agree with this objective because there is no point in a government fragmenting its resources over thousands of organizations. So this focus I completely agree with. I would like to believe that the auto industry is important enough to be considered for this incentive, and within which, given Bajaj's track record for the last 15 years of exports, as I said, we now export almost half of what we make, which is over 2 million vehicles a year. So I would like to believe that Bajaj will be one of those companies that the government will believe is or can be a global champion.
Mr. Bajaj, I want to look back at 2020. You talked about how for exports and for KTM specifically, it has been fabulous. The whole pandemic, in some sense, has pushed personal mobility in European markets and other export markets. What about in India? And I ask also because the wholesale numbers have looked good. Some of the narrative has been mixed. For example, you yourself said in the month of October that you thought 100cc sales could be down as much as 30%. Then October numbers come out and you've hit your highest target of motorcycles or highest manufacturing of motorcycles yet. You've talked about fears of post-festive season demand not panning out. So net, all in all, how would you look at 2020 in terms of sales, in terms of demand, in terms of recovery for your business and for two-wheelers specifically?
Well, I will maintain that my view remains the same as it was in September and October. And there was absolutely no contradiction in what I said. When I said that sales are negative year on year, particularly so for the entry-level segment or the 100cc motorcycle, I was speaking in the context of retail sales. And if manufacturers would transparently share their retail data on time, as FADA has been correctly, in my view, asking them to, then the facts would speak for themselves. Unfortunately, for reasons I completely don't understand, manufacturers resist sharing this data and continue to prefer to put out their wholesale data. Now, wholesale being higher year on year in September and October is not surprising at all, because we know that this year the festive season came in several weeks before last year. So obviously September and October this year were going to look good compared to last year. And that's exactly what happened for everyone, including for Bajaj. So when we did a high in October, it was based on wholesales, and we said that. The situation post the festive season again continues to be the same. And by that I mean the retail situation, because that's what matters at the end of the day. And retail is negative year on year, at least for Bajaj Auto. I can't speak for others because I don't have access to that data. And I'm talking in the context of motorcycles, particularly entry-level motorcycles. Of course, Bajaj is sports motorcycles. We are witnessing growth because that's an area of our strength. So we have growth there, particularly on the Pulsar brand. We have a very handsome growth. We have growth in our exports. So that does well or is doing well for us. But definitely on the entry side, there is degrowth. And I would be just surprised if this degrowth is exclusively for Bajaj. I would not know how to interpret or explain that. And to me, this degrowth at the entry level is logical, because it is that customer who was laid off. It is that customer whose wages were cut. It is that customer who walked home in the form of a migrant. So I don't see why people are surprised by this.
So can you quantify the degrowth in entry level for Bajaj Auto year on year? Would you have an idea of how much the degrowth has been?
I do not know the number off the back of my head, but I did say in October, if I remember right, that it looks like minus 20%. And I think it would be somewhere around there. Now, in our case, part of this degrowth is a conscious doing on our part, because we focused more strongly on profitability, as I believe is the right thing to do, especially in times like this. So what has happened is that while our market share at around 19 plus minus 1% in domestic motorcycles has remained unchanged year on year, but the profitability of our domestic motorcycle business in terms of the EBITDA margin has almost doubled year on year. So if you look at it only from a volume and share point of view, you may find that we are where we were last year. But if you look at it from the point of view of profitability, we have moved way ahead. Now, within a stagnant volume, the sport motorcycle brands like Pulsar, Avenger, Dominar, KTM, Husqvarna have grown very nicely, whereas the commuter end of it, that is our CT and Platina brands, have degrown. So part of where I say our degrowth is, say, 20%, maybe it's 15% now, part of this would be exclusive to Bajaj Auto. But definitely, I would suspect there is at least a 10% degrowth in the industry as far as entry-level brands are concerned. And I would be very surprised if that is not the case for the other players.
What is your response when you get trolled a lot, Mr. Bajaj, for saying things like we're seeing degrowth and there has been degrowth, when all of your peers are saying that the recovery has been smart and excellent, and your critics point out that you're being quote unquote negative even while your numbers are looking fine?
See, first of all, I am blissfully ignorant of anything that is being said on social media, because I myself am not on any social media. I am not on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or what have you. So I don't know what is being said there. But as far as this matter is concerned, I think one has to just simply go by the facts. So as we just finished saying, if you are going to reduce the discussion to wholesale in September and October, I think that's a very myopic discussion. Can see how industry was already in degrowth last year because of the three inimical factors of insurance, ABS regulation, and BS6, which combined to raise prices by between 30 and 40%. Now, when I name these three factors, when I name their impact in rupees, nobody can deny this because it's a fact. Once again this year, starting from March, we have been hit by three more inimical factors. First, the lockdown, then the withdrawal of the MEIS scheme that we just talked about, and then the disruption in imports, particularly from China. So in this situation, retails have continued to suffer. And, whoever it is, I don't know who they are, but whoever these peers are who insist that there is actually growth, let them put out their retail data year on year and the facts will speak for themselves.
Looking forward, Mr. Bajaj, for 2021, how do you see things panning out? Do you see growth returning? Do you see the need for personal mobility maybe taking you further or increasing demand in that segment? And do you think we have now learned to live with the virus, and vaccinations and that rollout will add more confidence to everyone?
Well, I think in terms of the virus, we have reluctantly surrendered to it, is what I have said, what I feel. I don't think we are a whole lot wiser. There is still a lot of ignorance. There is still a lot of fear. There is still a lot of knee-jerk reactions. There is still misplaced priorities in how to deal with the situation. But after so many months, I think everybody, whether it's the people, whether it's the government, whether it's companies, everybody's just fed up. And that is why I say we have reluctantly surrendered to it, and we are doing the best that we can under the circumstances. So I don't think we should get too many marks for having dealt with it in a very effective or efficient fashion. And that is why going forward in 2021, it is hard to make any numerical predictions because who knows, what may happen in response to the situation as it develops outside. I mean, let's say the vaccination drive starts. I have no doubt, actually, in my mind, that within weeks of it starting, the media will pick up and amplify the fact that people that took the vaccine have yet been infected. And when this happens, how is the government going to react? How are people going to react? God alone knows. So it's very hard to put any numbers on the next financial year. But in terms of what we have to do, where we have to apply ourselves, it's very clear. On the product front, we have several big objectives to meet in the next 2 years. We have our entire motorcycle portfolio to renew, especially on the higher end, the Pulsars, the Dominars, the Avengers. We have to launch all new platforms and products under those brands. The same is true of our three-wheelers as well. We have a lot of product work to do there. And then the electric vehicle portfolio that we have started building with the Chetak has to be taken further. We want to expand the Chetak portfolio. We also want to do some good work in the micro-mobility space with our partner Zulu. So we have a lot of product work ahead of us. On the market front, for sure, we would like to push up our market share in the domestic motorcycle market. We have to apply ourselves more vigorously and perhaps more imaginatively to the three-wheeler market, domestic three-wheeler market, because as you're perhaps aware, that continues to be heavily impacted because those sales are disproportionately dependent on the metros. And in the metros, people are not really still going back to work in large enough numbers. They're not going back to the theaters and malls and schools and colleges. So that business continues to suffer. And of course, exports, where we are doing so well, consistently over 200,000 a month, we have to ask ourselves, how do we take this to the next level? Can we target an export of 3 million vehicles a year? And particularly our focus is upon Brazil as a very large, promising market in which we do not participate so far. So on the market front, this is what we are preoccupied with. And then, as we just said, we have some new stuff happening. We have a new partner in Triumph. We have a new plant to put up. And apart from the fact that it must be a very contemporary, cutting-edge plant, like our existing Chakan plant, it must be extremely productive, very modular. But one of the goals we've set for ourselves, but we cannot do this without government support, is that half the people there should be girls, should be ladies. That's the kind of gender equality we would like to achieve in this new plant. So, that's going to take a lot of work. That's not easy to do with the current laws the way they are, which do not permit girls to work after 10 o'clock at night, etc. So let's see what we can do. So, we have to keep doing these things, and then the results will be what they will be.
Mr. Bajaj, I must ask you, because the last time we spoke, you quite famously said that you would not take the vaccine. We are now on the cusp of having vaccines very widely available in India as well. We're waiting for those authorizations. They will be rolled out for priority segments first, of course. But will you now reconsider taking the vaccine?
The short answer is no. Why would I take a vaccine?
It is a possibility. No, but it's the reason I ask is there's a possibility that travel now, international travel, will be based on whether you've had a vaccine or not. Access to a lot of places would depend on whether you've had a vaccine or not. It's a difficult choice to make.
It's not a difficult choice for me at all, and I'll give you the long answer why. See, first of all, I absolutely acknowledge the role of vaccines when it comes to stuff like, let's say, smallpox, polio, etc. So I'm not an anti-vaccine person at all. If I thought I was in danger of getting polio, would I take a vaccine? I absolutely would take a vaccine. Okay, so that's one. Now, but the second point is I am paranoid about what I have seen as the rise in autoimmune diseases during the same period that there has been a rise in vaccinosis across the world. The good Dr. Michael Boyd said, what is powerful for good is potent for evil. So although I am absolutely not qualified to judge this matter, but just seeing the phenomena, i.e. the rise in autoimmune diseases, makes me wonder whether we are doing two things that should not be done. One, we are continuing to vaccinate for stuff that is not relevant anymore. And two, we are giving too many doses of the vaccine than what is required. Now, as I said, I'm not a doctor. I can't judge that. But this is my concern. Coming to the present problem, as far as I am concerned, first and foremost, I am not born and brought up in the West in a sterile atmosphere. I have not been over-vaccinated. I have grown up breathing this polluted air. I have grown up drinking from the tap in India. I have grown up eating street food here. And therefore, like all Asians, my immunity is certainly far more robust than those who live in the West. And by making things more sterile and taking more vaccines, my contention is they only make things worse for themselves. But anyway, that's not my business. That's their lookout. So first of all, I believe in my immunity. Secondly, I am neither old, i.e. I'm not over 75, and nor do I have any underlying comorbidity, very high blood pressure, very high sugar, very high this. I don't. Third, I think I'm reasonably sensible when it comes to my diet, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to rest. I believe strongly in homeopathy. I do what I can to limit the stress in my life. And of course, I am sensible about practical precautions like wearing a mask or not, being in a large crowd at a time like this. So it is in this context that I believe that my risk of dying, let's say, from COVID is next to zero. In this situation, why would I put myself at risk with what I deem to be a hastily developed vaccine and insert in my reasonably healthy body what is certainly a pathogen? I don't understand. For me, the risk benefit just doesn't make sense. Now, coming finally to your question about travel, let me tell you candidly, there are only 4 places that I care to travel to. If you look at my passport, you will see that I have never been to Africa, almost never. I mean, I've been to Egypt once. Except once, 15 years back, I have never been to South America. I don't like going to the US. I stopped going to Japan a long time back. There are only 4 places I go to. 2 places for work, because of KTM and now Triumph, which is Austria and the UK. And 2 places that I like to visit from a personal point of view, which is Thailand and Switzerland. I don't think any of these places are going to mandate a vaccine. If it becomes so in Austria and the UK, that's fine. I can do my work online. If I can't go to Switzerland, I think I can live without it. Thailand will be a challenge, and I would like to believe they need tourists like me over there. But if that becomes a problem, let's see. I will review it that.
Okay, so it's only a trip to Thailand which will make you reconsider. That's great to hear. Just last question before we wrap up, Mr. Bajaj, because we're going into 2021, and I know it's the cliched question, but this year, what is the resolution / promise to oneself based on lessons learned from this year, which has been, which has changed everything for everyone?
See, I've always believed that you cannot control what is outside of you, whether in a personal context or in a work context. And COVID is just one more ambassador of this truth. You have to build your immunity, your resistance, your vitality, whether it is as a human being by, as I said, through your diet, exercise, rest, homeopathy, etc., or whether as an organization by having the right strategy in place that is aligning all your resources, all your people, and driving them in the chosen direction. So I think this is the most important truth that is relevant to our present times. And as I was saying to some of my colleagues this morning, we must continue to invest this FDI in our DNA. And what is that FDI? The F that stands for focus. We must keep our focus on becoming, I don't know whether we'll be the biggest, but the best motorcycle maker in the world. What is the D? Differentiation. We must do so. We must be the best motorcycle maker in the world by virtue of differentiation, technical differentiation, marketing differentiation. And third, the I stands for improvement. We are a TPM company. We believe that every day we must do something so that we make one improvement at our workplace by the end of the day. So I think as long as you stay with focus, differentiation, and improvement, you will be the last man standing. This is what I believe.
All right. On that note, thank you so much for speaking with us, and season's greetings. Hope you have an excellent new year.
To you too. To you too. Thank you. Thank you, Tamanna.